Hi, CK. How are
Hi,
you?
May. Hi. So good to be
Uh,
here.
yeah, nice to see you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I think the question when it comes down to it is compassion, right? So maybe I'll start there. I have always been a very cerebral person, and everything that I've done is very much focused on the mind. But part of focusing on the mind, I would notice there's a lot of chatters going on in my mind. And I learned of the concept when I met the Dalai Lama. He started talking about compassion. He started talking about the mental chatters in our mind and how that is actually causing more suffering than if I just experience it as it is. And that actually pointed me to a new direction. How can I bring more compassion for myself as well as for others around me? Because the challenge of coming just straight from the mind is very logic driven, and I would notice that I would constantly be ruminating, obsessing over something that I've done in the past or anxiety towards the future. And when it's gone unchecked, and I would just accumulate more and more of this distress, more and more of regrets, more and more of anxiety. And it's one of those things that, you hear people say a lot, that is, just let it go. Yeah, but it's easy to say, it's simple to say, but it's
Yeah,
impossible to do when I didn't have the tools. So when that happened, on the lighter level would be thinking about things. I couldn't go to sleep, I couldn't really be with people. And so that's on the light level. On the heavier level would be like, what's the point of living, right? Suicidal thoughts, depression, chronic depression and things like that. And that really has me ask the question, how can I free myself from the suffering? So meeting the Dalai Lama was very, very inspiring, because now that actually has me start to study some of the ancient practices, right? The Buddhism practices. And then I started doing Vipassana, I started doing plant medicine, I started doing all kinds of different things as a way to free myself from my own suffering, from my own stress.
what was it about Dalai Lama that you found really inspirational?
Yeah, I asked myself that question because it wasn't the words that he was saying, because I had the knowledge, I had the information that he was conveying, but it was a way of being. It was how he was able to embody that compassion from a very deep body space that actually had me feel him. And before that point, I've never met someone like that before, up until that point. And that I was very, very curious about what is it exactly that actually has him touch me so deeply. So how do I actually free myself, from my own suffering? That was the core of this exploration. And so now that I've learned some tools, some concepts, I'm able to actually give it away in such a way that it will relate to my younger self, right? The people who are coming from the cerebral basis. How do I actually share some of these powerful tools such that they can live a successful and fulfilling life?
Very cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
And what are some of the practices?
Before I go into this specific practice, I wanted to share a mental model, so that way people have an idea of what is it that I'm speaking about. We perceive the objective reality from our consciousness, and then we experience a subject reality, right? An internal reality. And our subject reality could be mental images, thoughts, feelings, motions, and body sensations. And how do I experience that fully without biases, without attachment, without resistance to what it is, and just receive it as it is? And suffering comes from holding on to these images, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and body sensations, right? The grasping of it, the positive ones, or resisting the negative ones. So if that's the case, so Just like how we have any kind of attachment, these layers build up over time. Sometimes we have a trigger reaction without understanding why did I just have an explosion over this little thing, right? So the more I can have practices to let go of the outer layers and be more present in the here and now, the better, the more fulfilling, the more present that I would be in this reality. So that's the mental model, right? How do we shed the different layers, the outer layers of our consciousness? So these bigger tools like ayahuasca, breathing, or yoga, whatever practice that resonates with you, is a way to tap into that, okay? So the daily practices. So these days, the moment I notice there is some kind of negative emotions or negative thoughts or negative imageries or negative body sensations, then I will actually just very simply, this mantra, I'm going to share this with the audience, that is, even though I experience whatever, bracket negative emotions, I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm judgmental, whatever the subjective reality is, I love and accept myself. And the fact that this negative emotion, I have it because it is a part of me. And just notice internally how you're able to let that go. Does that make sense?
And I was thinking, your experience is trying to tell you, it's signaling, pay attention to something. It could be very useful as well.
Totally, absolutely. And I really love this particular mantra, even though this negative experience is happening, I love and accept myself and the fact that I have this negative emotion because it's a part of me. When I first started on this journey, I think about negative emotions or negative anything as something that's bad, I want to get rid of, versus that it's a part of me, it's trying to tell me something, it's an indicator. It's a marker of something. So this mantra actually allows me to actually integrate that because it is a part of me. And the end result is very instantaneous, that any kind of negative emotions that will just immediately disappear. So the way I want to think about it and to share with your group here is that think of it as hygiene. So rather than letting these negative charges accumulate over time and then you say, holy shit, I have to basically clean house, right? Instead of doing that, do it as a regular practice. As soon as you notice any kind of negative charges that's accumulating, that's arising from within you, do that practice and just let that go. Think hygiene instead of thinking some really overwhelming task. Herculean task that you have to do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think personally, something I struggle with is to have a consistent practice. So I'll do something for a little bit for a while, then, the next week I'll try something new. And it's been difficult for me. I think especially if it's too complicated, it will be difficult for me to be consistent with it. So I love the simplicity of this practice.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, there are a lot of different tools, whether it be breathing, whether it be mantra, whether it be visualization, whether it be, reading spiritual text, whatever it may be. Just keep it simple, right? So that way you actually do it.
Yeah.
I think Stanford research did a beautiful study around how do you actually teach someone how to floss? Because a lot of people actually have problems establish a practice of flossing their teeth. They really want to, they know it's good for them, but they don't do it. So the suggestion there is, how do you establish a micro habit, right? So their suggestion to them is just to floss one tooth. And obviously when you start at one tooth, you're gonna, do the whole thing. But the commitment that you make is just one tooth. Similarly here is, anytime you feel something, the unease, or you're noticing a little bit of negative emotions coming up from within you, you can use that mantra as a way to integrate that as part of who you are.
Yeah, beautiful. I know we both did the Finders course. I actually started to redo it again, just to, revising some of the practices. And one of the things was this like cancel method.
Yeah.
I noticed myself, especially in the past few weeks, start using it more often. So like when my mind is drifting off and I know that's not really where I want to go, I'll just say cancel and bring it back. And it goes back again. And I go, cancel.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Yeah, so at least, I'm aware of what kind of thoughts or what kind of emotions I want to be focusing on. And at least I'm noticing it, even though, it still goes up. It's a start.
It is. And I would say, just like how we exercise, we eat, we have hygienic habits that we do, right? We don't just say, hey, I took a shower a year ago, I'm done for my life. That's just not how it works. Our thoughts, our feelings, emotions, and body sensations comes constantly. The only thing constant in the universe is impermanence, right? So, the egoic mind wants to have something just, check the box, that's it, moving on to the next thing. The reality is that this is a daily practice. And for me, I notice if I stop doing these type of daily practices, it's a very dark place that I go to, right? So for the sake of my own peace of mind, for the sake of my own high performance, to fulfill the commitment that I have to make a difference in the world, a great place to start is these type of micro practices.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. It's really perfect.